Just to open your mind, I want us to look at Exodus 24, which is our opening verse. Okay, if you carefully read this chapter, I'm not going to read, it's quite long, but if you carefully read just the first verses of this chapter, you are going to realize, as you can see the topic, the covenant confirmed, you are going to see that it is a ceremony or ritual that was performed to initiate what we call the Old Testament. So basically, the Old Testament starts from Exodus 24. After this ceremony, okay, we're going to look at that. Now, if the Old Testament starts from Exodus chapter 24, where is the book of Genesis and the previous chapters of Exodus? Can we say it is in the Old Testament? So I want us to look at that. And this is very important. If you don't understand these things, you won't understand when the Bible says there are three things that remain, which is faith, hope, and love. You won't understand when the Bible talks about the order of Melchizedek, which is mentioned a couple of times in the book of Hebrews, and a whole lot of other things. What I will do, I will explain what a testament is, how to know where a testament begins, how to know where a testament ends, and then you are going to have a clear picture of this whole thing. What is a testament? A testament is an agreement between two people, but nowadays we use the term will. We call it a will. Like you have your father, your rich father, writing on a document, okay? So the father will call a lawyer and explain that should something happen to me, give my cars to my son, so and so. Give my house to my daughter, so and so. Give my business to my wife, so and so. And then that's going to remain with the lawyer and another copy with the father. So we call that a will. Now, a will is an agreement between people, okay? And a will is a covenant. A covenant is a testament. It's just the same thing. For you to understand, just keep it that way. Now, there's something very important which the Bible shows us, and which is something that we also know. It's in Hebrews chapter 9 from verse 16. For where a testament is, there must also of necessity be the death of the testator. In other words, if the father has written that which I have told you, okay, those people, the daughter, the son, and the wives will not get those things until the father dies. Okay, so there is the testator or the person who writes the will, and there is the testament, which is the written document. That written document is not active until the person who has written it dies. That's it. In other words, for a testament to be active, the person who has written the testament should die. That's what this verse means. There must be of necessity the death of the testator. Okay? So, in the Bible, if we say we have the New Testament, for example, we should be able to clearly see who made the promises and to who were the promises made, and the person who made the promises die, because the testament should begin where the person who has written it dies. In the New Testament, let me make an example with the New Testament. You have Jesus, okay, initiating a certain agreement, how things are going to go by, the new system, the new way of doing things. And then you have Jesus dying, the testator dying. For you to know where the New Testament begins, you have to go to the place where Jesus dies. That should be in John chapter 19, okay, where it talks about the death of Jesus from verse 28, okay. This portion of the Bible shows you where the New Testament really begins. It might have been established while Jesus was alive, okay? but its effectiveness begins from this point where Jesus dies. Now, we have where the New Testament begins. Let's go to the Old Testament and also establish the place where it begins. Okay, it is in this place, Exodus 24. Look at verse 7. Then he took the book of the covenant and read it to the people. They responded, "We will do everything the Lord has said. We will obey." Okay, so they are agreeing. Now remember, the testator has to die for the covenant to be active. But in this case, they made a sacrifice. They killed calves and bulls. Okay, you know what a sacrifice is. It's something that dies in the place of another. So they made a sacrifice to stand in the place of the testator. Otherwise, right here, somebody had to die for it to be active. But then blood was shed, sacrifices were made, and then the old covenant was active. Okay, we have the Old Testament beginning from this place and then ending where the New Testament begins, because the New Testament was established within the Old Testament. Jesus lived in the Old Covenant, but while he was alive, he wrote another testament, and then that testament was initiated when he died. So now we have parts of the Bible that are outside of the Old Testament and outside of the New Testament, the book of Genesis particularly. What is that part of the Bible? To cut the long story short, there was a way of doing things before the Old Testament, okay? And the Bible usually refers to that system before the Old Testament as the order of Melchizedek, where you find a man coming to have a relationship directly with God himself. Like you have Abraham meeting with Melchizedek and having certain activities, even having him paying tithe straight to God. Okay, that was the order of Melchizedek. Usually it appears like that in the Bible, especially in the New Testament. Let me show you that. Okay, must be in Hebrews chapter number 7. It says, this Melchizedek. Now let's start from chapter 6, maybe the last verse. It talks about Jesus. Okay, he has become a high priest forever in the order of Melchizedek. Okay, so that's where you find the Bible talking about the order of Melchizedek. It's like, let me put it like this. It's like in a school having a certain syllabus, and then you introduce another syllabus for a certain subject, and you discover that this new syllabus has got a lot of problems, and now you want another syllabus which is going to be maybe the same and even better as the previous syllabus that you had. And then you introduce this new syllabus which is like the first one that you had and even better. Okay, so that's what is happening here. There was that way of doing things, and then they introduced the Old Testament, and then they introduced the New Testament, because the Old Testament had a lot of issues according to the Bible. And then they introduced the New Testament, which is in the order of Melchizedek. So now I can directly speak to God. God can visit me. Okay? That's why it's possible that you can just meet God on the streets and talk to him sometimes and not know. Right? So you have to be careful. That's what the Bible says, that we have to be careful when we entertain strangers. For some have entertained angels unaware. Okay, so be careful. Jesus is on earth. Jesus is moving around in people, in angels, but the order of Melchizedek is active. It's like when you offer tithe. When you give tithe, you give tithe in the order of Melchizedek. Remember, I spoke about the three things that remain, which is faith, hope, and love. When the Bible says these three things remain, it means that they don't change throughout all these agreements, all these testaments, whether it's the old, the new, the order of Melchizedek. Wherever you are supposed to walk by faith. Okay? You are supposed to walk in love. You are supposed to keep on hoping. And it says the greatest of all is love. And I know why. It's because no matter how much faith you have, no matter how strong your faith is, without love, your faith will not work. Because the Bible says faith works by love. So love is more important. You can have faith and hope. If you don't have love, the faith will not work. Okay? And the reason for hope is very important. It's impossible to help someone who doesn't hope to change. You always need to have hope for something that you want. Okay? It even leads to words of prophecy. You speak words like, I will make it out of this situation. You are hoping. Okay, so these three are very important. I hope you learned something from this video. If you are new, make sure you stick around, make sure you subscribe. I'll come around with more information. Thank you for watching.